Alright, so this is going to be a video about the application of Doc Brown's shoe decals. And for the 1/6 scale Doc Brown figure, this is what the shoes look like out of the box, kind of bland, no markings. Also on the sheet is a decal, and I don't know if it'll show up in the video or not, but for the stopwatch, the little Seiko logo, which has already been applied to that one, and the Futaba logos for the remote control. I think you can see that in the video, hopefully. But anyway, I'm going to just show how the decals are applied using the shoe as the example. So some of the tools I use, you need a little bit of water. Microset, Microsol are very helpful, especially like this shoe has a texture to it, so Microsol will help the decal melt into the texture. It softens it up, makes it adhere right to the texture as opposed to getting air bubbles and pockets underneath it. I also use paintbrushes to smooth it out and to apply the Microsol or Microset. And tweezers are helpful, and sometimes I will use a toothpick, especially like with the small, like the Seiko decal where they're very small. A toothpick's very helpful because it won't scratch it. It's not likely to scratch it as the tweezers are. Okay, so once I have the decal cut out roughly the way I want it, then I just dip in the water real quick, and then I'm going to set it down and let it soak that in. Usually while I'm waiting for that, I'll be putting a little Microsol or Microset on the area where I'm going to put the decal. If it's a smooth surface, I use Microset. If it's a rougher surface, I use Microsol, again, to help it melt into that textured surface. Okay, so now once I get it hanging off that backing a little bit, it would be nice if I had something to hold that shoe in place, because the shoe is moving all over the place. But I don't, so I'm just going to deal with it. Okay, so let's see if I can get this about where I want it here. Whoops, I don't want it that low. And like I said, the texture on texture, it is more difficult to move these around because they want to stick to the texture. And that's pretty good. I think I'm pretty happy with that spot now. So once I've got it pretty much where I want it, I'm just take a paintbrush and kind of smooth it out, get the wrinkles out, try to get all the air bubbles out I can, and smooth the position out and smooth the decal out. And then you can put some more Microsol on it, especially like you got these creases where it's a little deeper, where the decal needs to really soften and go into the crease to adhere to the surface. But this looks pretty good. And there you go. So now it's on there. At that point, I move on to another decal. Let that, while that's drying, I mean, it can be on the same shoe or whatever, it doesn't matter, but so let's go ahead and we'll do the Nike on the back. And it is very tiny. Just give it a tiny bit of water. You don't have to leave it in the water long. Just set it like on a paper towel or something to soak for a second. You might want to put some Microset in this case, because this is a relatively smooth surface, so I'm going to use Microset. It's just not as strong as Microsol, and since this doesn't really need to melt the decal or soften it much, you really don't need it. The Microset just helps it adhere and helps you move it around a little bit when you place it, so that if it's not where you want it right away, you can still slide it a little bit. So I slide it off the backing a little bit. Try to keep this where you can see what I'm doing. And you can either use your fingers like me, or you could use a toothpick to get it off the backing, and then just slide it wherever you want. And again, you can like add water or Microset to make it move more easily, but they move fairly easily as long as there's a little moisture under them. once I have it about where I want, I think that's pretty good. Then again, just take the dry paintbrush and kind of brush over it, which will squeeze the water out from, or the micro set out from under it, and help it adhere. And again, just you just let that dry. And you'll see decals, waterslide decals. Most of them are going to be shiny or have some kind of shine, especially on the clear part when they're applied. And I'm going to show you next how you get rid of that shine so that it blends in and looks just like part of the design, or part of the, almost like it's painted on instead of a decal. Okay, so here's the other shoe, which I've already finished putting all the decals on, and so you can see I've got the white Nike logos on the front, the swooshes on both sides, and the Nike in the back. But they, like I was saying, they are kind of shiny looking. So what I use is, and you can use any kind of flat dull coat, clear coat. I use Mod Podge matte, which is it's very, in my opinion, the things I've tried over the years, it's like the easiest and best. It's just very easy to, you put a coat on, it blends right in. You don't have to worry about it. It looks like almost like Elmer's glue when you're putting it on. It's white, but you just brush it over the area that you want to dull coat. In this case, with a relatively small area, I'm going to coat most of the area around the decal, so it'll all be the same flat tone. Mod Podge, you really don't have to do this because it, like I said, it just looks very natural when it dries, so it really wouldn't be that noticeable anyway. But I always think if you can make it all uniform, it gives it even a better look. But like I said, you really don't have to. So that's it. You coat that on, and I'm going to go over all the decals with this, and when it dries, it'll be relatively permanent for one thing, because this will seal it to the surface, and then the other thing is it's going to give it a very finished, natural look where you won't be able to see any lines of the edge of the decal or the clear, shiny part of the decal, because it'll all be blended in. That's it. It's that easy. You can also, on like a larger decal, you can use spray coating if you want. But you can already see this one. I don't know how well it shows up in the video, but you can already see it's drying, and it's gotten rid of the shine. There's still a couple little wet spots, but for the most part, it's now dull coat, and looks really good. So anyway, that's it. Thanks.